started because I think we're at 7 o'clock. So Neil, would you like to open with prayer?
Sure. Dear Father, as we come to you today, we give you thanks for these moments that you've given us to be able to hear your precious word that's been laid out for so long ago just for our ears. As we do hear these things, we ask that our minds be open so that we can fully understand and be able to apply today those things that we are learning so that we may be strengthened by your word. As we do go through these, we do know things are coming near the end by watching what's been going on, including the weather around the world. We ask that you do take care of your people, watch over them, see that they're cared for in the manner that you wish to be done. And as we open these meetings, we give you thanks to your Son, Jesus, for this time.
Thank you. All right, so tonight we're still on a little bit of royal influence, and we got Double Trouble, Queen Hamutal. I try to make some alliteration so you guys will remember this stuff, because otherwise you'd be like, who's Hamutal? I don't remember Hamutal. But this is a very interesting one, so hopefully you'll get something out of it. And the reason why she's double trouble is because she was the queen over two wicked kings. They weren't the absolute worst kings, but they were two kings that were terrible, and she was the mother of them all. They were so bad that that was the end of the Jewish royalty. It was the end of their monarchy completely. It never returned after this. They tried to set up one in between, but there was nothing lasting. The Babylonians had them, and the Medo-Persians, and the Greeks, and then the Romans kicked them out in 70 AD and 156 AD. They never had a dynasty again. So being capable of fostering and nurturing one wicked king is not enough. Why not go for two? This woman helps them to bring down the house of Judah until Christ returns. These two kings came from good stock. Their father was one of the few righteous kings of Israel, Josiah, and held the largest Passover feast Israel had ever seen, and he cleaned Israel's house from mediums, spiritualists, and turned to the Lord with all of his heart and souls. So they did have a good father. I just don't know what happened, whether Hamutal just turned them away or what. So how did he harbor and nurture such wicked sons that were it not for the influence of his wife over their children? Once again, the axiom stands true that if the queen mother is righteous and instills her children with the fear of the Lord, then there will be righteous kings. If not, then they will follow the road of the world. So, Hamutal gives birth to two of these. Most people know who Zedekiah is. Not a whole lot of people know who Jehoahaz was. But Hamutal is definitely, her shadow stands over both of these monarchs that turned away from God. So, pretty incredible. All right. So this is about some of the facts about Hamutal that might be helpful. Do you want me to do this, or do you want a reader to do this?
It's up to you, however you feel.
I'm fine about giving it to somebody, but there are a lot of names in here.
Okay.
I'll just read it because I know it's hard. So Hamutal is the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, was the wife of King Joash of Judah, and the mother of the kings Jehoahaz and Zedekiah, the last king of Judah before the Babylonian exile. Here's more information details. Hamutal is a prominent figure in the biblical narrative, especially in the books of 2 Kings and in Jeremiah. The royal connections: she was the wife of King Josiah, who ruled from approximately 640 to 604 BCE. The mother of kings, Hamutal is identified as the mother of two Judean kings, Jehoahaz, also known as Shallum, and Zedekiah, also known as Mattaniah. Um, so the influence and the Ptolemaic Hamutal's role as the queen mother is believed to have been her considerable influence in political and cultural matters, especially leading to Ptolemaic or prophets like Ezekiel and Jeremiah. In other words, they came to warn them. The succession of royal succession, her son Jehoahaz became king with the support of the people, despite having an elder half-brother, potentially demonstrating the influence of Hamutal's wielding the royal succession. Zedekiah's reign, the last king of Judah, reigned for Jerusalem for 11 years before the kingdom was conquered by Babylon and the people were exiled into Babylon for basically 70 years. And Hamutal's name and role are mentioned in these different references in Kings and Jeremiah. So I think it's kind of helpful to know that background information. So we'll start with 2 Kings 23, and this gives us a little bit of history about them. If you can pick a reader there, Walter.
Betty, you and Jerry are up.
It's just me tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Jehoiaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as his fathers had done. Pharaoh Necho put him in chains at Riblah in the land of Hamath, so that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and he imposed on Judah a levy of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. Let's see. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as Jehoiakim had done. It was because of the Lord's anger that all this happened to Jerusalem and Judah, and in the end, he thrust them from his presence.
Yeah, so, all the other kings said no other king was worse than this, or worse than this, or worse than this. This is so bad that God says, I'm just going to thrust you away. I'm done. I'm not even going to deal with you anymore. So you can imagine that her influence, Hamutal's influence, was pretty unbelievable in the fact that she was able to cause so much trouble. And Pharaoh Necho put him in chains and dragged him to Riblah. That was Jehoahaz. And Zedekiah's situation was even worse because he refused to surrender over and over and over again. Jeremiah wrote all of these scrolls to him with prophecies. He literally sat in his winter room with a fireplace going, and every time he'd read a couple lines, he'd take out a penknife and cut off the scroll, throw it into the fire till he had burned up the whole scroll. I'm like, that is unbelievably evil when you know the Lord wrote it. I mean, just no respect at all. And he kept toying with Jeremiah. He put him in a pit. He did this to him, he did that to him. Meanwhile, Jeremiah is threatened by the people, threatened by his officers and by the leaders of the time. And in the end, what happened to Zedekiah?
Let's see, he's the one that was.
He tried to escape through the wall
Yeah.
and go to Egypt,
Right.
and the military caught up with him and dragged him back for sentencing by the king.
Right.
So what they did is they took all of Zedekiah's sons and they slaughtered them in front of Zedekiah's eyes.
Yep.
And then they scooped out Zedekiah's eyeballs. So that would be the last thing he would ever remember, was seeing the slaughter of his children. And he was taken to change in Babylon, and the situation never got better there. If he had surrendered, he could have stayed in Jerusalem. They would not have been captured. They would not have been burned to the ground. his sons wouldn't have died, the temple wouldn't have been ruined. I mean, there's just so many things to talk about with Zedekiah. But Amutal, his mother, was pretty unbelievable. So can I get another reader for this one?
Sure. David and Nancy, I think this is a good font for you.
She was from a Levite town, originally conquered by Joshua. The town name means pavement. Hamilton certainly paved the way to destruction through her influence with both her sons. In Jeremiah 52, we hear the rest of the story. Zedekiah not only rebelled against the Lord, against Jeremiah and his prophecy and advice, but he also rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, and because of that rebellion, suffered a terrible fate. All Zedekiah's sons were slaughtered before his very eyes at Riblah, and all the officials of Judah.
And then his eyes were taken out, so it's just unbelievable how bad the situation got. And Hamutal and her influence could have, turned this around because their father was righteous, but it didn't happen well here. Can I have a reader for Jeremiah 52 about the fall of Jerusalem?
David, is that a good font for you?
I'll give it a try.
Thank you, sir.
Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. His mother's name was Amiel, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as Jehoiakim had done. It was because of the Lord's anger that all this happened to Jerusalem and Judah, and in the end, he thrust them from his presence. Now Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army. They camped outside the city and built siege works all around it. The city was kept under siege until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine in the city had become so severe that there was no food for the people to eat.
Yeah, so it was really bad. They built siege works. The Babylonians were famous for their siege works and what they could build. So way off in the distance, you see those towers that are there. They had catapults on those towers that could fling stones, could fling fiery ammunition into and over the wall of Jerusalem to cause havoc. So they encamped around the city. Nothing could get in or get out. So when this took place, which was in his 9th year and the 10th month, so it's basically October of the 9th year that he was reigning, it stayed that way for the next 9 months until there was absolutely nothing left. It's the 11th year, the 9th day of the 4th month, which would have been our, let's say April, May, June, July. Basically the 4th of July. This is one of those saying what it is. And there was nothing left in the city. So they built siege works, they built these towers, and he still tried to escape and get away and leave everybody behind. To me, that's just like the most cowardly thing to do. Like, he wouldn't surrender all this time, and now there's no food, and he's just gonna abandon his people. So Zedekiah is a pretty bankrupt individual, but I'm guessing his mother had a big hand in making him that way. And there's a lot of great queens who create incredible kings, but Hamutal is not one of them. So here we got the rest of the city, rest of the story from Jeremiah 52 about the fall of Jerusalem. You're going to see what else happens. Next reader.
Joanne, you're up.
Oh, Joanne.
Joanne, do you hear us?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out how to unmute this.
Yeah, I know how it goes.
Okay. The fall of Jerusalem. Then the city wall was broken through and the whole army fled. They left the city at night through the gate between the two walls near the king's garden. Through the Babylonians were surrounding the city, they fled toward the Arba. But the Babylonian army pursued King Zedekiah and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. All his soldiers were separate from him and scattered, and he was captured. He was taken to the king of Babylon at Riblah in the land of Hamath, where he pronounced sentence on him. There at Riblah, the king of Babylon slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. He also killed the officials of Judah. Then he put out Zedekiah's eyes, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon, where he put him in prison till the day of his death.
Not a happy ending at all. And, he escaped Jerusalem with his army. Then his army got scattered from him, and he had no support. So then the Babylonians are just like, we got you, man. There's nothing you can do. And then they wanted to severely punish them. If you had laid up siege works against a city that refused to surrender for over a year, you would be like, you're gonna get it. You're gonna see my full anger because of what you did. And so he basically, slaughtered not only all of his children in front of his eyes, he slaughtered all the officials of Judah. But God saved Jeremiah right out of this mess. It's just so funny to me, like the king of Babylon instructed his military to find Jeremiah, to separate him out, and to tell him, you got your choice. You can either go back to Jerusalem or you can come with us. Whatever you want to do is fine. I'm going to appoint Gedaliah as the governor of the land. You can stay with Gedaliah if you want, or you can come with us to Babylon. And it's just incredible that he decides to stay with Gedaliah, who later on gets assassinated. I'm just like, the evil of Jerusalem and the evil of Israel just didn't even stop. Not even after they went to Babylon. It just kept rolling on like a steamroller. But the important thing here is to say this was the end of the line. It's the end of the line for the military. It's the end of the line for the monarchy, for Zedekiah, and definitely for Hamutal. So keep on trucking. We may assume that.
I've got a question.
Yes.
The mother has not been mentioned now. Is she considered one of the officials, or what happened there?
In Isaiah, so you're talking about Jeremiah 52 during the destruction. I think she was probably either dead before this, or she got killed along with the kids. At this moment, but she's not specifically named there. She's mentioned in other places in Jeremiah and the Kings, however.
Well, I thought maybe they had her as one of the officials since she basically ruled her son, so I wasn't sure.
That's true. That's actually really good, Neil. That did happen, because I didn't research her death. I probably should have researched her death to find out what happened. We may assume that the wicked queen mother Hamutal was put to death before him as well as one of the officials of the court. So that's in line with what you were saying, Neil. What is also true is that Zedekiah's name came true in his own life. Jehovah is righteous and Zedekiah is not, and yet his name was given to him by the king of Babylon. His original name was Matina, which is a gift of Jehovah, Yet he was actually like a curse on the land that he ruled. Their collective legacy of rebellion brought down the entire royal household of Israel for all time until Christ returns. I just want you to get that. That's like such a heavy thing, is that they never had a king again because of these two and their mother. So pretty remarkable ending to the story. Yeah.
Just a small clarification.
Yes.
So the month of Tevet, or however you say it, the 10th month, actually encompasses parts of December and January on our calendar. So it's like really in the middle of winter when he tried to make his run for things.
Okay.
Another bad time to try to do something.
Well, we never completely out of food. There was no way to grow
Right.
anything. It's just so crazy that, everybody told him to surrender and he wouldn't do it. And then
Stubborn.
he tries to sneak out between all that.
Right.
In embankments, what's it called? When an army surrounds a city, the siege works.
The siege works himself.
I don't even know how he got past it. I just don't know.
Perhaps they let him go just so they could chase him down.
Well, my guess is he could have used Hezekiah's tunnel
Yep, true.
to get out.
Because I was thinking, you build a city like that, you would want a secret back door that you could use to get the heck out of Dodge. But when you got that fast an army,
Yeah.
it's not like they're all half a mile from the place. They're like miles and miles around this, the city.
Right.
So even if you come out of your tunnel 10 miles away, there's still somebody around waiting for you. So
Yeah, I think Hezekiah's tunnel would probably be a pretty good, reasonable guess of
Yeah.
how he might have gotten out.
and it was pretty close to the city too. So you
That's where you got, like, on the other side, it's kind of level and flat.
Mhm.
It's the two ravines that go down. That's the Kidron Valley and the Hinnom.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then the tunnel goes beyond that.
right.
Okay, so we're on to the next one, which
Jerusha.
is righteous Queen Jerusha. And Jerusha is incredible because, once again, it's a flip-flopping affair. You gotta, I think, before I go too far, let me just make sure what we're doing. She is So she's the wife of leprous King Uzziah. So Uzziah was a good king for many, many years, but his military got strong, he got proud, he got rich, and he made a very fatal mistake, which is he went into the temple of the Lord to burn incense, and only the Levites are allowed in there. I mean, it wasn't like churches today where everybody's allowed in. Nobody was allowed in. It was just those who were priests, and even if you were a priest, it was by appointment only, and you had to be between what age and what age to serve.
Let's see.
It's 30 to 50.
Yeah, it was really small number.
20-year gap, that's it. So he went in there, he's not a Levite, he's not the right age, he hasn't been appointed, and just decides, I'm gonna burn incense to God. You don't do that. And it's amazing that he overlooked Nadab and Abihu,
Yeah.
who were the very sons of Aaron, who went in and offered an unauthorized incense to the Lord. And fire broke out from the holy place and turned them extra crispy. I mean, just burned them to ashes. And they had to carry the remains of those ashes out. Because the people who were already serving couldn't leave. They were like, do not move, do not mourn, just stand there. And other people had to come in and pick them up and take them out. So Uzziah was doing this, and he thought, I'm just gonna go in and make this offering. 80 priests came in and was like, what are you doing, King Uzziah? You're not allowed to be in here. And he was furious with them and rancorous towards them. And then leprosy broke out on his forehead and spread everywhere else. And he was rushed out of the temple complex. And he never went there again, and nor did his son. So the queen mother was Jerusha. So basically, the son got to rule almost immediately after that incident, because Uzziah couldn't be in the company of anyone. He was in seclusion and a separate house. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere near the temple because he had leprosy. So Jotham his son became king, but he was very righteous. But the righteousness of his reign, I think you could definitely attribute to Jerusha. So can I get a reader for this slide?
Sure. Neil, it's your turn, please.
In the Hebrew Bible, Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok, was a mother of King Jotham
Jotham,
of
yeah.
Judah and the wife of King
Isaiah.
Uzziah. For Joshua's role, she was the queen mother during the reign of her son, King Jotham, and the wife of King Uzziah. For biblical references, her name was mentioned in 2 Chronicles 27:1, where it states that Jotham's mother was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. I've got Jotham's reign became because king of the age of 25 and reigned for 16 years in Jerusalem. The meaning of the name Jerusha is derived from the Hebrew word, that one I don't know,
Yerusha.
Which is the right way to say it?
inheritance or taken possession of.
Yeah, so that's kind of significant because she had to help her son to take over the possession of the royal household of Israel because King Uzziah had done this, gotten leprosy, and couldn't even reign anymore. He couldn't do anything. So there's another big factor that happened during Uzziah's reign. He did invent all these military uniforms, equipment like catapults,
Right.
that kind of stuff that he put on the towers that could fling stuff. He built vineyards, he built gardens, he built cities, he built all this stuff. But one more big event happened during his reign, but it's not recorded in the Kings and it's not recorded in the Chronicles. And you're like, what in the world? It's referenced in one of the minor prophets, and you're like, why isn't it included in the Kings? Does anybody remember what it is? I'll give you a hint. It's in Zechariah, I think it's Zechariah 14. I'll just check.
Was it the big earthquake?
Yes.
That's what I was trying to remember, yeah.
Yep, so there was a huge earthquake, and they sent archaeologists with seismologists to the 6 cities in Judah that were directly hit by this. So let me say that again. There were 6 cities that were on the fault line of this massive earthquake. So it happened in the time of King Uzziah. If you look at your Bible and you look up earthquake and Uzziah, they should come together and you should be able to find them. So I'll put that in here real quick because I probably have it on the slide after this, but anyway.
Is it Naaman? Where is it?
Okay. Yes, Amos chapter 1
That's what I thought.
and Zechariah 14. So it's in both of those places. So it says the word of Amos, who was one of the shepherd breeders in Tekoa, what he saw regarding Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is from Zechariah 14, and it's verses 5 and 6. You will flee by the mountain valley, for the valley of the mountains will extend to Azal, and you will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come with all his holy ones with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that earthquake was massive. It leveled cities and all the rest of it. It caused quite a havoc. So, in modern times, archaeologists went with seismologists. So the archaeologists took the seismologists to measure earthquakes, and they said, here's the ruins that we've dug up of these 6 different cities that were from the era of the time of King Uzziah. Please examine the evidence and tell us where this would fall on the modern Richter scale. Does everybody understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So the seismologists looked at the evidence that they had uncovered, and it was layered down because remember the whole cities were leveled and then they just built on top of it. They said it was anywhere from a 7.8 to an 8.4 earthquake. Pretty massive, that knocked everything down. So I just want you to remember that's a real marker in history, and so it's an Amos and it's a Zechariah.
And the other good thing to remember about this is it shows you that there is a sleeping fault that sits in Israel, and that God has already said when his son returns, he's going to touch it and wake it up. And what it did to those cities will be nothing compared to what it's going to do to the mountains and the landscape all around Jerusalem when he returns. So we know scientifically, even if you know biblically, that thing's sitting there waiting to happen. It's not like, oh, magic's got to happen. No, all God has to do is say, move, plate, and boom. You can see from the previous evidence what will happen.
So it's called a slip block fault.
Mm-hmm.
So when 2 plates come together, but they can't go past each other, usually they can go under or over, but they are sliding past each other.
Right.
So the plate on the east side is going north. The plate on the west side is going south.
Right.
So it will tear the Mount of Olives in half, and one will go north and one will go south. When that happens, that valley that's created by the Mount of Olives splitting in 2 will be lifted up, and that will be a plain, and that will be where supposedly the temple will be built. So what I love about it is it's new ground. It's never been used before, and God's making it holy for the site of the temple. But that major earthquake is a separation between the Middle Eastern plate, the European plate, and the African plate. So all 3 are kind of moving around each other, and it will be, as Walter said, a massive earthquake that just will tear the place apart. So Jerusha's amazing. This second clay seal is reddish brown in the appearance, and it contains the actual fingerprint of King Ahaz impression into the upper left edge, and it reads as follows: Ahaz, the son of Jotham, Judah's king. So it's actually physical evidence of Jotham as the king, and it's pretty amazing. So if we can get a reader for this slide, that'd be great. It's pretty small font, I'm sorry.
Patsy, you're up if you're able. If not, we'll move.
I got it. Unlike many of the other kings of Israel who either had a wicked father or wicked mother, King Jotham had the best of both worlds. He had a righteous mother and a father who guided him in the way he should go. His mother, Jerusha, and his father, Uzziah. She had spiritual roots since her father was Zadok, the high priest during the time of David. As a little girl, she may have witnessed David's tearful departure from Jerusalem when Zadok and his sons followed David as he left, after Absalom disposed him as king. Jerusha means dispossessor. Zadok means righteous. And Uzziah means strength is Jehovah. 2 Kings 15:32-34. Jotham, king of Judah, in the 2nd year of Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, Jotham, son of Uzziah, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uriah had done. Jotham's son, King Ahaz, who took the throne when he was 21 and reigned for 16 years, was a wicked son and even sacrificed his own children to the false god Moloch in the fire.
Yeah, so you see it switch up again, but Jerusha did a great job of sort of being the glue between her husband's abdication of the throne, because he was still alive, he just couldn't reign because he had leprosy, and guiding Jotham while he reigned for 16 years until he was 41 years old. And then Ahaz took on up for that when he was 21 and reigned for 16 years, and he was a nightmare. So, so what's important to know about her was that Jerusha was the wife of King Uzziah, or known as Oriaz Azara, who reigned from 783 to 742. She was also the mother of Jotham and succeeded the father. Significantly, she was also the daughter of Zadok, the chief priest, at the moment of history when Judah's power peaked. Being married to the king did not make her queen. Kings at that time had many wives and large harems. Jerusha's husband came to the throne of Judah at the young age of 16 and reigned for 52 years. So there are many unanswered questions to Jerusha's story. Why is she hardly mentioned at all? Most royal wives are being ignored by Bible writers. Why was she described as the daughter of Zadok? She must have been an unusual power of influence at the time when Judah was in its height of its power. So, this last slide on this. We can get a reader for the slide, I guess.
Okay. Susie, you're up.
Okay. Who was King Uzziah? Jerusha's husband, Uzziah, proved very industrious and engaged in many projects. He was a successful fighter, especially against the Ammonites. He attacked and overran settlements in Philistia. He was also a builder. Water conservation was promoted and desert areas irrigated. He thought ahead. The walls and defenses were strengthened and the army was enlarged. Queen Jerusha provides a son and heir. There was something odd about the birth of Uzziah's heir. Jerusha had her son Jotham when her husband was 43. This was usually late in life. Why? Were there other sons to other wives? Almost certainly yes. Did these sons die? How and why? Were they murdered? This was common in palace rivalries. Why did King Uzziah have Ahaz as the only son? We know King Uzziah was struck with leprosy because he offered unauthorized incense at the temple and was rushed out by 80 priests. He was forced to abdicate and to live in seclusion, and his son Jotham took over.
Yeah, so just some interesting facts about all of this. So she certainly lived in good times, but kind of tumultuous times. There's a lot of change in the country and a lot of construction going on, wars with the Ammonites and with Philistia. So there's a lot there to think about. So this is kind of a split screen between Queen Jerusha, because remember the queen mothers reigned with their sons, and King Jotham. So can I get someone to read what's on the left? What did Queen Jerusha think?
Royal women may have lived in seclusion, but they wielded considerable power. Jerusha seems to have been allied to the temple party through her father Zadok, so we can assume she played a part in what happened next. Her husband was supposed to have contracted a skin disease, which was diagnosed as leprosy. Maybe this was actually true. The Bible discreetly says he had to live separated from the rest of the court for the rest of his life, and he was not even buried in a royal tomb.
Very good, thank you. I think we had Walter with the
So Yerusha's son became a king. Yerusha's son Jotham became regent, co-ruler, while Uzziah went into the permanent seclusion. Or maybe there was more to it than this. The Assyrian Empire was looming over Judah, and many people wanted Judah to join an anti-Syrian coalition. Perhaps a leprosy hit a palace coup in which Jotham took power from his father and imprisoned him for the rest of his life. At this distance in time, who knows? In any event, Yerusha's status rose. As mother of the king, she became the most powerful woman in the land.
Yeah, so this was a commentary, and I probably should have done some editing to it before I put it up here, because she's surmising a little bit of too far beyond the scope of what the scriptures say. But I think her last statement is very significant, that she rose to power as probably the most important woman and the most influential woman in the kingdom. So we are finished with all of the queen mothers and their royal influence over their households. This is the last slide on this whole chapter about women of influence and their royal influences over kings. Can I get a reader for this slide?
Okay, Betty, we're back to you, please.
We strive for the unbroken chain of faith from generation to generation. Yet this is not possible without perpetual generational righteous influence of mothers to children and mothers to children. Most frequently, the chain is broken when spiritual sons marry unspiritual wives. It began in Genesis with the expanse that spans today. Before Noah, it says that the Son of God married the daughters of man. And from that one sentence flows the thought that the wickedness of man grew so great upon the earth that every thought and imagination of man's heart was only evil continually. Then God was sorry he created man in the first place. He saved 8 souls, and only one of those God claimed was righteous. The rest went along for the ride. In the royal families of Judah and Israel, we see an almost unbroken axiom that holds true from generation to generation. The power of the Queen Mother's influence cannot be underestimated. Almost without fail, every righteous king had a righteous mother, and every wicked king had a worldly or wicked mother. This should be a tremendous lesson to men. Learn from the plethora of evidence bearing witness to you through the generation of time, marrying women who will bring righteousness into the world, not wickedness. The future of your generations largely depend on the righteous influence of a righteous mother to their children.
Thank you, Betty. So it's worthy of study because we never saw this axiom broken even once in all the kings of Judah or Israel. If there was a righteous queen mother, there was a righteous king that came afterwards. And it almost didn't matter whether the father was righteous or not. What mattered was what the mother taught and how she acted and how she trained her children. And so there's a powerful verse from Proverbs that sort of surmises all of this. What is the verse from Proverbs? Train a
Child up in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart. The paraphrase.
Yep, that's it. So that kind of summarizes this whole thing, and you can certainly think that Solomon wrote that for a reason, because he would see it in future generations, especially with his wife. So we'll start the next chapter, but we're definitely not going to finish this tonight. Well, this is influential servants. So we've gone from queens down to slaves and servants, and I think this is, in many cases, even more interesting than the queens. So these servants did so much to change the world around them. So we have a captured Hebrew slave girl who gets taken by Naaman, and she is very vocal and is like, my master could be cured of his leprosy by going to the prophet in Israel. Then we have a Greek slave girl who prophesies about the kingdom of God. We have another slave girl who accuses Peter of being one of them, in other words, one of Christ's followers. And we have Rhoda, who's a slave girl who knew it was Peter after Christ's death, burial, and resurrection, and when Peter had just escaped from prison. And then a conclusion on that. So we're going to look at some of these servant girls, and it's quite amazing what we see here, because when you think of servants or slaves throughout history, are they powerhouses of influence?
Not in the way we think of it, but
Yeah.
they do have subtle abilities for influence.
So after they gain the trust of their masters over long periods of time, they can advise them.
Right.
But they're always in an advisory capacity where all they can use is influence, because they have no power at all. So that makes it all the more remarkable. Like when we study the queens of Israel, they have real power, they have real authority, they can make things happen. This is from the bottom up, and these slaves and servants have to influence by their righteousness, by their holiness, by their perfection as servants. Otherwise, it isn't going to work. So we'll start with this one in 2 Kings chapter 5. This starts a ball rolling that just keeps rolling, and it's like a snowball. It just keeps bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm always impressed. I would love to know the name of the slave girl, because she was obviously taken as a prisoner, as a captive, by one of the major wars with Israel when Israel lost. And she went to Aram, and whose house does she wind up in? Like the top general of Aram, because that's what Naaman is. He's like a 4-star general. He's way up there, and he winds up with this captured female slave. So let's take it away, Walter. Whose turn?
You're up if you're able to read this, please.
You're up if you're able. You're able if you're up. Nancy, did you want to read that one?
Okay, didn't hear you. Naaman
Sorry.
healed of leprosy. Now Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now bands from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. "By all means, go," the king of Aram replied. "I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, "With this letter, I am sending my servant Naaman to you so that you may cure him of his leprosy."
Wow. So from a servant who is captured from Israel, she comes to her master every day and says, "I just wish you all would listen to me and send him to the prophet in Israel. He could be cured of his leprosy." I mean, her faith is that great. Nobody else's is, believe me. Not Naaman's, not Gehazi's, not the king of Israel. Nobody. And this escalates because he does listen to her, and it's like, if you have to listen to a servant girl, to me, you must have tried every other cure, every other doctor, every other physician that you could possibly do, because this seems like an unlikely thing for the commander of an army to listen to a slave girl that he captured. He might have thought it was a trap or something else. So he goes to the king. He's like, "Yeah, I'll support you. You go ahead, man. I'll write letters for you, and you'll get this thing done." And they're loaded up with goods. Now, what's amazing to me is that it isn't demanded of Israel. He comes there with 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing, which is a lot. Now, just remember, they have raided Israel and they have won, and they've taken away stuff. So I'm kind of surprised they take this very courteous, diplomatic way through this, when they could have just demanded of Israel, give us this prophet. He's gonna come live with us from now on and cure us of everything. But they don't. They're very humble, and they go and do this. And it says in this passage, Naaman was a great man in the eyes of the king, a great man in the eyes of the Lord, that the Lord had given him victory.
That's the key.
Over Israel. And I'm like, what? He gave him victory over Israel? Those are God's people you're messing with. I don't understand how this happened. So there's a lot in this story that makes human relations so interesting, and makes the story very compelling, because you've got two kings involved, slaves involved, military commanders involved, and the interplay between them all is fascinating. What I like to do is compare this Hebrew slave girl with Gehazi. He's a servant too, a servant of a prophet. This is the servant of a military commander. And when you line these two up, you're like, Gehazi, you're worthless. Worthless compared to this girl. Go ahead, Walter.
So what I was going to say is, this is a very useful example for us. We see this servant girl, and she kind of shows us how we should be about things. Though she's captured and under the control of this person, she still has an admiration for him and a sense of duty to say, I can help him. And a faith that says, man, all you got to do is go back to Israel, and this can be fixed. And this guy, obviously God is with him, we can tell that. But obviously he is treating her very well as well, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would she have such respect and admiration and want to see him heal? So the lesson to us is, that's what's happening in the lives that we're living and the influence we should be having over people. They should see us as servants looking to bring about an improvement in the lives of the people around us, not wanting anything, but for you to be better or you to be happier, that thing. So she's a beautiful example of that.
Absolutely.
And I have to agree with you though. I'm sitting in my house and here comes this guy from, Babylon, wherever they're coming from here. And he said, hey, I got a job for you to do. You better get taking care of it. Heal my master.
I know.
You're like,
You're gonna see the king's reaction in just a moment.
Just a moment. Yeah.
But he's the commander of all the armies of the king of Aram. So you're at the highest level. So the Sekdef is the equivalent of Naaman. Who is the Sekdef for the United States? The Secretary of Defense. Well, Trump just fired him, so we got another.
I'm gonna say those are pretpretty worthless guys nowadays.
Name any Sekdef in history. I can remember McNamara. I can remember Donald. What was his
Rumsfeld.
name? Rumsfeld.
Yep.
Donald Rumsfeld. During Lincoln's time, it was.
Yes, you remember him.
Simon Cameron.
Yeah.
There was many of them. So let's see.
I usually remember the states more than I do the defense guys.
General Winfield Scott was the highest one. That was before the war. Anyway, so he's high up there. I just want you guys to get the picture of this. He would have been over everything at the Pentagon by our standards. Okay, here we go. So, I don't know why my thing is last. Can I get over here for the slide?
Where am I here? Let me get my stuff in order. Where was I? That's right, Nancy read. David, can you read this one for us, please?
Is it possible that a slave girl would know more than the king? Yes, she knew there was a prophet who could heal Naaman, yet the king did not know it or believe it. Her influence went straight through the wife to Naaman, to the king of Aram, who sent a letter to the king of Israel. At the message, the king went ballistic, thinking that the king of Aram was trying to pick a fight with him. To Elijah, stepping in with his directive through his servant Gehazi.
Absolutely. I hope I include the second part of this passage. I don't know if I did. Oh, this makes me so mad. Okay, I accidentally killed the second part of this. I'm gonna go back and I'm just gonna read it to you. So we are 2 Kings 5. Okay, 1 second. And then I'm gonna stop for the night because we got plenty of stuff to do. So we read through verse 6. Now I'm gonna continue on. I don't know why I cut off the rest of this thing. He brought the letter to the king of Israel and read it. When the letter comes to you, note that I have sent you my servant Naaman for you to cure him of his skin disease. When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and asked, "Am I God, killing and giving life, that this man expects me to cure a man with his skin disease?" Then he passes the letter over to his advisors, who say, "Think it over, and you will see that he is only picking a fight with me." Then Elisha, the man of God, heard what the king of Israel had done. He tore his clothes. He sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Have him come to me, and he will know there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. Then Elisha sent him a message who said, "Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored to you, and it will be clean." But Naaman got angry and left, saying, "I was telling myself, he will surely come out, stand and call on the name of Yahweh his God, and will wave his hands over the spot and cure the skin disease. Aren't Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and left in a rage. But what happened? His amazing servant stepped in again. The first servant was back at home still. She's the one who said to go there. The servants approached him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more when he tells you, wash and be clean?" So, second time the servants are involved, advising him, because, they want him to get to the end goal, to be clean. So Naaman went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, according to the command of the man of God, that his skin was restored and became like the skin of a small boy, and he was clean. Then Naaman and his whole company went back to the man of God, stood before him and declared, "I know there's no God in the whole world except in Israel. Therefore, please accept a gift for your servant." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives and as I stand before him, I will not accept it." And the reason why is because this is God's miracle.
Right.
You don't collect monetarily adventurous things from other people for doing miracles on behalf of God. So Naaman responded, "If not, please let your servant give as much soil as a pair of mules can carry, for your servant will no longer offer a burnt offering in the sacrifice of any other god but Yahweh." This astounds me, okay? He didn't like the Jordan, and he was like, "I'm not gonna get washed in the Jordan. Aren't the rivers of Damascus better than this?" By the end of it, he's so humble, he wants to take dirt back to Syria, to Aram, from Israel, just so he can worship on it. I'm like, what? I mean, he's changed inside and out by this event. It's not just the external that was changed, it was the internal. "However, in a particular matter, may the Lord pardon your servant when your master, the king of Aram, goes to the temple of Rimmon to worship, and I, his right hand man, bow in the temple of Rimmon. When I bow in the temple of Rimmon, may your Lord pardon your servant in this matter." So he said to him, "Go in peace." After Naaman had traveled a distance from Elisha, Gehazi, the attendant of Elisha, the man of God, thought, my master has let this Aramean Naaman off lightly and not accepted from him what he brought. As the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him. So Gehazi pursued Naaman. When Naaman saw someone running after him, he got down from the chariot to meet him and said, is everything all right? Gehazi said, it's all right. My master sent me to say, I have just come down and discovered that 2 young men from the sons of the prophets have come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them 75 pounds of silver and 2 changes of clothes. But Naaman insisted, please accept 150 pounds. He urged Gehazi, and then he took a packet of 150 pounds of silver and 2 bags with 2 changes of clothes. Naaman gave them to his young men who carried them ahead of Gehazi. So Gehazi's got servants too, which is amazing to me. Then Gehazi came to the hill. He stood with the gifts with them and stored them in the house. Then he dismissed them and the men, and they left. Gehazi stood by his master. Where did you go, Gehazi? Elisha asked him. Your servant didn't go anywhere, he replied. But Elisha answered him, wasn't my spirit there when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to accept money, clothes, and olive orchards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and male and female slaves? Therefore, Naaman's skin disease will cling to you and your descendants forever. So Gehazi went out from the presence diseased, white as snow. So you go from this Hebrew girl who's been captured, she's a servant, she advises the wife advises the husband, he goes to the king says, yes, I'll give you letters to the king of Israel. The king of Israel's like, what in the world are they doing? And then Elisha didn't read the letter, he just tells him, why did you tear your clothes? Send them to me. So he comes to him, he doesn't go out and wave his hands and do something grand, he just tells him to wash 7 times. And he's like, I'm not doing that, the rivers of Damascus are better. And his servants again intervene. He's like, if he asked you to do some great thing like climb Mount Everest to get rid of leprosy, wouldn't you have done it? He's asking you to do something simple, man. Just do it. So he does do it, and he gets clean, and then he's going to carry dirt back with him to Israel, from Israel to Syria. And it's like, oh my goodness, such a change of heart. And then Gehazi, the servant of the prophet, winds up being the villain, like the darkest villain out of all of this. And for that monetary payment he got paid, he and all of his descendants are struck with leprosy for the rest of the time. I think Harry Whitaker actually thinks those 4 lepers during the time of the Great Siege, when they're starving to death and the king gets trampled in the gate, he thinks those are Gehazi's sons. Or something, I thought.
Something like that.
We'll stop for tonight because we're over time. Walter, you want to close us with prayer?
I surely can. Dear, kind, and truly merciful Heavenly Father, it is in you that we live and move and have our being. Your word has told us, and we know this to be true. We know if it were not for this great love you have for us, for thy great mercy and thy grace, and all the veracity of thy word, how true it is, we would be lost for all. But we have that hope, and we long for that hope, for the day when thy Son shall return. Establish thy kingdom here upon the face of this earth, where we might be changed and might be converted from the weakness of this flesh to the spirit and light that you would have us be, that we might bring honor, glory, and praise to thy name. We thank thee as we have studied these words that they prepare us even more for that day. And if each day that we live, we may learn more and practice it, that we might be prepared, that when that day comes and thy Son returns, we'll be able to serve him and you in the ways that we should. We thank thee for all these blessings of life you've given to us, the instructions of these people that we've learned from. May we learn from them. May we be like those who are truly righteous and